Oh, hi. I didn't see you come in there. I'm Thomas with Better Off Damned. There's something that's been bothering me for a little while about the concept of sin, and I'm going to try to explain it as well as I can. The first thing you have to understand is that humans innately have morality. It's not something that comes from an outside force. Morality is a bit more complex than people would like to admit to themselves. It has a lot of factors, so it makes sense that people would like to simplify it. But in essence, it's a collective of human experience. There are some things that would disqualify an action from this rule, but first and foremost, for something to be immoral, it must harm another person. But then we have this second idea, and it's called sin. And it looks a lot like morality at face value. After all, the Bible does have a couple of things in it here and there that are good morals. I can think of a couple examples. The Good Samaritan, turn the other cheek. Oh! Oh! A handful of the Ten Commandments. Those are all pretty decent morals. Although it doesn't really take a lot of intelligence to see why they would be moral, whether there was a God or not. But the problem that we have with sin is a few things, actually. First of all, it turns morality into submittance to authority. Things aren't good just because they're good. Things are good because God said so. It tells you, you couldn't possibly come up with these morals on your own. You need this authority figure that's going to send you either to heaven or hell, depending on how good you are, to even begin to understand what morality would be, and that's just not true. Now, I have two great examples of what I call arbitrary morality in the sin world. First being homosexuality. The second, oddly, being the only thing that's absolutely unforgivable. You cannot get into heaven if you do this last thing, is disbelief in God, or atheism. Now, the first thing that you have to understand about both of these things is that neither of them is a conscious choice. Homosexuality has been scientifically proven to be genetic. We've found even which chromosomes the handful of gay genes sit in. Now, I say gay genes because there's no one single gene that's going to decide your sexual preference. And it's not a black and white thing. That's why we have bisexual people, too. We even have some bisexual people that are preferential towards same-sex, or some bisexual people that are preferential towards opposite sex. And so you can see that there's probably a lot of genotypes that come together to form the one phenotype for heterosexuality or homosexuality. Or often they come out with a phenotype that you can't really label as one or the other. So we have this sort of thing called bisexuality. Now, it's even easier to show that disbelief in God, or atheism, isn't a choice. Nothing that anybody believes is just a choice. It's as simple as a little thought experiment. I'm going to show you, actually. Try as you might, can you choose to believe that this is a crocodile? I want you to choose to believe that this is a crocodile. Can you? Or are you simply checking your programming and telling yourself, no, it's a croc? Just like Christianity. You can't just decide that you want this to be a crocodile and honestly believe it. You can tell somebody that you believe it's a crocodile, but that doesn't mean that you actually believe it. Now, why would a God give us a moral standard that doesn't match up with whether or not things actually harm other people or not? Do you personally believe that homosexuality is wrong? Can you point to any victim or anybody that's harmed? Do you see any harm in simply not believing in God based on lack of evidence? If you don't, you're obviously disagreeing with God, and you go even farther in proving my point that sin and immoral acts are not synonymous. They're not the same thing. Sin, after all, is defined as that which displeases God. It's kind of a vain concept when you really think about it. It's a common argument to say that atheism hurts God, or gay sex is immoral because it hurts the people participating in its soul. These fail as arguments, though, because when you're arguing for the credibility of the Bible, or for the existence of God, or for whether something can be considered immoral, to inject the idea of a soul, which there's no evidence for, or the idea of God, that there's also no evidence for, into it, is presuppositional. It makes your entire argument circular. It's bad because God says so, because it's bad because God says so, because it's bad because God says so, because it's bad. Now the real kicker here is that because we've basically determined now that neither of these things are choices, and neither of these things harm anybody, basically this means that God is sending these people to hell, at least in the case of atheism, because you can still get into heaven, I think, if you're gay, as long as you pray and ask for forgiveness and love Jesus. Atheism, you're just going straight to hell. Is that God is sending these people to hell for things that He, if you believe in Him, made happen. Gay people are gay because God made them that way, and He sends them to hell for it. Atheists don't believe in God because He gave them a sense of skepticism and an inability to accept things without evidence, and He's sending them to hell for it. And hell wouldn't even be that big of a deal, really, if it was not eternal. I mean, maybe if hell had some sort of, like, parole officer or something, maybe if you could, like, get out after a certain amount of time with good behavior, sort of like a rehabilitation thing, that would make sense. But no, God's not punishing you out of love. He's not punishing you so that you will think about what you did or become a better person. Hell has no parole officer that is going to decide if you're rehabilitated and then let you into heaven. It doesn't work that way. Because it's eternal, that basically means that God is sending us to hell out of vengeance. But the idea of an eternal punishment for anything, honestly, is so incredibly immoral that I don't understand how any religious person can accept it. So I guess the TLDR version would be, even if God did exist, He's not worthy of worship because His vanity obviously, absolutely outweighs His empathy.